Imagine you're at a school playground. There is one kid, we'll call him Thailand, who is building the most incredible Lego tower anyone has ever seen. It's taller than the teachers, it's covered in gold paint, and it's growing every single day. Everyone is amazed. Other kids start bringing their own Legos to help him build, hoping they'll get a piece of the glory. The teachers call this a tiger economy. They say Thailand is a genius, but there's a secret Thailand isn't telling anyone. He didn't buy any of those Legos. He borrowed them from the older kids in the high school across the street. And he made a very specific promise. He told them that for every Thai seashell they gave him, he would always give them back 1 US marble. This promise is what economists call a currency peg. It makes everyone feel safe. The high schoolers think, well, as long as a seashell is worth a marble, my investment is safe. But here is the first twist. Thailand didn't realize that the value of Legos can change, and the older kids can demand their marbles back at any time. In the mid-1990s, Thailand was the star of the world. Money was pouring in. They were building skyscrapers that didn't even have people to live in them. They were building golf courses in the middle of jungles. It was a giant party paid for with borrowed marbles. But then the high schoolers, the big global investors, started to look closer. They noticed that Thailand was borrowing way more marbles than he could ever pay back. Even worse, the things he was building with the Legos weren't making any money. The skyscrapers were empty. The golf courses were quiet. Suddenly, a few of the smartest kids on the playground started to get nervous. They went to Thailand and said, "Hey, we want our marbles back. Here are your seashells." To keep his promise, Thailand had to reach into his secret jar of marbles, his foreign reserves, and swap them. At first it was fine, but then more kids showed up, then dozens, then hundreds. This brings us to the spiderweb analogy. The global economy isn't a collection of separate countries. It's a giant, invisible spiderweb. Every country is a different point on that web, connected by thin, vibrating silk threads of debt and trade. If you pull on one thread in Bangkok, the vibration travels through the silk and shakes a bank in New York, a factory in Tokyo, and a pension fund in London. And this leads us to the second twist. The person who decided to snap the thread wasn't a government or a king. It was a group of speculators, financial ninjas, who realized that Thailand's marble jar was almost empty. The most famous of these ninjas was a man named George Soros. He realized that Thailand was lying. He knew they didn't have enough marbles left to keep their promise. So, he and his friends did something ruthless. They started shorting the seashell. Imagine you borrow a bike from a friend and sell it for $100 because you know that tomorrow everyone is going to realize that brand of bike is actually worth only $10. When the price drops, you buy the bike back for $10, give it back to your friend, and keep the $90 profit. The speculators did this with the Thai seashell. They sold billions of them, betting that the price would crash. Thailand tried to fight back. They spent every single marble they had left trying to buy back their own seashells to keep the price up. But on July 2nd, 1997, the jar finally went dry. Thailand had to admit the truth. We have no more marbles. One seashell is no longer worth one marble. It's worth whatever people think it's worth. Overnight, the seashell's value plummeted. People who had saved their whole lives in seashells woke up and realized they were half as rich as they were the day before. The Lego tower didn't just stop growing, it shattered. But remember the spider web. When Thailand's thread snapped, the entire web started to shake violently. Investors in other countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, and South Korea looked at their own Lego towers and started to panic. They thought, wait a minute, if Thailand was lying about his marbles, is my country lying too? This is what we call contagion. It's a financial virus. This brings us to the third twist. The people sent in to cure the virus actually made it much, much worse. The global doctor, a group called the IMF, showed up in Thailand. They said, "We will give you some emergency marbles to save you, but you have to take our medicine." The medicine was brutal. They told Thailand they had to raise interest rates, cut spending, and let their banks fail. They wanted to show the world that Thailand was being responsible. But in a world where everyone is already panicking, cutting spending is like taking a starving person and telling them they need to go on a diet. The economy didn't just slow down, it flatlined. In Indonesia, the price of rice tripled. In South Korea, people were so desperate to save their country that they stood in long lines to donate their personal gold jewelry, their wedding rings, and family heirlooms, just so the government could melt it down to pay back the marbles. The tiger economies were now beggar economies. But the virus wasn't finished. It traveled through the spiderweb across the ocean to a place called Russia. Russia was already struggling, and when the price of oil dropped, because no one in Asia was buying it anymore, Russia simply said, "We aren't paying any of our debts back to anyone. Ever." This was like a grenade going off in the middle of Wall Street. And this leads us to the fourth twist. The smartest guys in the room, the ones who thought they were too smart for the spiderweb, were the ones who almost ended the world. In America, there was a giant hedge fund called LTCM. These weren't just bankers. These were geniuses. They had 2 Nobel Prize winners on their team. They had built a magic math formula that they claimed could predict the future. They told investors their machine was so perfect that it was impossible for them to lose money. They used their math to borrow over $100 billion to make massive bets on the spiderweb. But their math had one flaw. It assumed that the world would always act normally. It didn't account for a financial virus. When Russia stopped paying its debts, the math formula broke. In less than a month, these geniuses lost $4 billion. They were so big and so connected to every other bank in the world that if they failed, they would pull the entire global banking system down into the abyss with them. The US government had to step in and force all the big banks to chip in and bail out the geniuses, just to keep the world from ending. The smart kids had built a bomb, and the teachers had to pay to defuse it. So, what is the lesson of the Tom Yum crisis? For 30 years, we were told that the global spiderweb was a good thing. It meant we could all get rich together. But 1997 proved that the web is a trap. It means we are all vulnerable to a mistake made by a kid we've never met on a playground halfway around the world. But here is the final and most terrifying twist of all. After the crisis, the countries in Asia realized they could never trust the global doctor or the US marbles again. So they started doing something new. They started hoovering up every single US marble they could find. They built the largest marble jars in history so they would never be bullied again. This created a giant imbalance. Asia had all the savings, and America had all the debt. This new spiderweb is what allowed the 2008 financial crisis to happen. And it's the same web we are living in today. Today, the spiderweb is bigger, faster, and more connected than ever before. We have replaced Lego towers with AI bubbles and crypto gold rushes. We are still making promises we can't keep, and we are still borrowing marbles from the high schoolers. The Tom Yum soup was spicy, and it burned the world in 1997. But the ingredients for the next crisis are already simmering on the stove. The next time you see a headline about a small country's currency failing, don't ignore it. Look at the silk threads. Look at the marble jar. And remember that in a global economy, there is no such thing as a local problem. The vibration is coming. The silk is stretching. And the spider is just waiting for the next thread to snap.